Okay. So now we'll talk about Lmodule. This is a spin-off project from Build Test. So maybe some of you may be familiar with in previous talk on like the Build Test module features. Um, what we've done is taken some of those Build Test module features and we've exposed it into Lmodule. Um, and I'll start off with one of the user surveys. I think it was conducted last year in EasyBuild. So, the survey indicated like, how many modules were installed at the facilities, and what I found was like approximately about like 60% had like 500 plus modules. There were a few sites that had like up to 1,000 or even more than that. So it's a lot of modules actually. So the idea is like, well, you have so many modules, we need to have a mechanism to automate the module, like just automate module testing, right? It's helps obviously gain confidence in your system, like your software stack, through just simple sanity check of the modules. And I have also seen instances where we've written like an invalid module, and then we may have got like few tickets from them, because some people like to use specific modules, and the goal is to help even reduce the number of tickets that come up. So what is Lmodule? It's basically a Python API for module system to automate like the module load test. And as I mentioned, this project grew out of Build Test. So previously, all the features were in Build Test. They were deprecated in version 0.8, and now it's just a standalone Python API. And the goal is, maybe other communities, other projects may find this useful if you're using modules in some way. Lmodule uses Spider tool to like actually query the software stack. And if you want to install Lmodule, you can just use pip to install it. And the documentation, you can find it over here on the right. So just an overview of Lmodule. It currently supports 3 main classes: module, spider, and module load test. The module class is just like it implements some of the features of the module command. The spider is, is just an interface to the Lmod spider tool to basically query the software stack. And then there's the module load test class that automates the module load test, of a software stack. And that's used mainly just for just testing the software. So let's start off in module class. In order to get started, you can just import the module and from Lmod.module, and you can invoke the module class and create an instance, and it expects a name of a module, either as a string. So in this example, we say I want to pass in GCC core. And you can use the get command module to get an actual return string code, of what the module command would look like. So it just shows you it's a module purge and then loads the module. You can also pass in a list of modules, so you can expect either a string or a list. So we can say, I want to pass in GCC core and zlib. And if you say get command, it will get you the both modules are loaded. You can also test the modules. So if you load some module in some instance, you can use the test modules method, and it will actually test the actual module load and give you a return code. You can also find if a module is available. So you can say, I want to create an instance of module and say, I want to use the isAvail method and say, is module GCC available? And we'll give you a return code. And it could be, basically it's using the module isAvail command. So by default, we purge modules, but you can tweak that behavior, right? So all you need to do, like, let's create an instance of a module and say I want to load OpenMPI, but I want to say purge. I don't want to purge it. So I say purge is equal to false. And then it would just only load OpenMPI without module purge. You can also say I want to force purge. So if you say force equals true, then it will append the force option to the module purge and then load OpenMPI. Okay. And if you, for instance, say, I want to force purge, but not do purge, like if you say purge equals false, then we ignore module purge because force is just an option to module purge. We support module collections, kind of, the Lmod module collections. So like, saving modules, showing the modules, like module save, module describe, like to get the collection name using module restore and actually testing them. So if you create some instance of a module class, you can say save, just call the save method. If you don't specify any argument, it will save the modules that you have into the default collection. So it's equivalent to module save command. If you want to specify a collection name, you can specify that as an argument to the save. So let's say I want to save GCC core and zlib into the GCC under zlib collection name. So it will just store that as a collection. We can also show the collection name. So if you're familiar with like module describe, we have a describe method. So if you don't specify any argument, it will show you the default collection. That's equivalent to running module describe. You can also specify a collection name. So in the describe method, like I want to say, show me GCC zlib collection name. So it will show you that. You can actually get the appropriate module restore command using the get collection. It will return a string. And that also operates on the collection name. So if you don't specify anything, it will show you the default. If you specify an argument, it will show you the collection name. And finally, you can actually test the collection. So using the test collection underscore collection method, and it will give you a return code. And what it does is just running the module restore command and seeing the exit code. Next, we'll talk about Spider. So Lmodule uses the Spider tool to query the software stack. To get started, you just import the Spider class. And what it supports is getting unique software, getting the module trees. It can get the module names. It can retrieve parent modules and also versions of particular software. Okay. So to get started, like you just invoke the Spider class. You can specify, you don't have to specify any arguments. And what it will do is it will just search all the modules in the current module path. And you can use get names. That's a method in the Spider class. And that will show you all the unique software names, or basically unique module records that Spider finds. And if you want to, you can also filter by a specific module tree. So in this example in the bottom, you can specify a root of a module tree into Spider, and then use the get names, and it will give you just modules in that particular tree. So you can also do some interesting things, like you can use Spider module to like class to do like filtering. And this is just a simple example. Like we create an instance of the Spider class. A is an instance of Spider, and we're gonna loop over them using the get modules method and filter by all modules that are of CUDA and GCC. And then we can invoke the module class and actually test them. And if you run this script, basically what we've done is the script is just testing all the CUDA modules and GCC modules on your software stack. So I think it's worth mentioning the content of Spider. What Lmodule does is it runs the Spider command, which is it has multiple options. One of the options in the -o for output format is spider-json. it gives you the spider record in JSON format, and you can specify a list of directories for the module path to search. This is an example from Lmod 8 spider record, and there was a change between Lmod 6 and 7 in some of the records in the spider. So here's a record of diff utils. So the top level key is diff utils. Then there's a key that follows that with the full path to the module file. And then it shows you all the metadata of the module file, including the full canonical name. That's what we use to find the actual module name used to load it. The version property here in the red is the actual module version. And we also can query the parent modules that's used to load modules before you load this module. And it's just a list of modules to load. So now I'll talk about ModuleLoadTest. That's the class that's used to kind of implement module testing using Spider, and this is compatible with Lmod. And the goal is to help automate module testing. Currently, we can test all modules by module path. That's the default behavior. You can test by specific module tree. You can tweak the module purge behavior and filter modules by name, also full canonical name, and you can also like test by login shell if you want. So you just import the ModuleLoadTest class, and you can just create an instance of it. If you don't specify any argument, it will just test all the modules specified by module path. So this is just an example, and it will just start testing everything. In this example, we have two trees that we're testing, and the output is an entry of the module name, the full path to the module file, and if it passed or failed. And the output can be quite long, depending on how many you have. So that leads to the other part, like you may want to test modules in different ways. So you could test them through module purge, or you can test them without module purge. That really depends on your site and how you want it, but you can use the purge option. So in this example, on the left, we specify in the ModuleLoadTest the path to module tree, so you can actually do that. You can also specify the purge option that tells, okay, I want to say purge is true, and it will run module purge before each test. So it would run module purge and then load the appropriate module. If you say false, then it would not load module purge, as you can see. And you can also enable like debug if you want to see the actual command that's being run. So you can say debug equals true or false. We can also test modules in a login shell. So by default, we test in a sub shell. But running in a login shell can help solve some weird issues that you may have in your current shell. So in order to just do that, you can just say login equals true. That's just an option to ModuleLoadTest, and it will just run everything in a new login shell. I guess in this example, just a bash shell. You can also filter modules. So using the name property, and that expects Spider records from Spider. So when we say, and it's a list of Spider records. So if you say filter by CUDA, it will go into the Spider and find all the CUDA modules and then test every single one. In this example, we just test only 6 CUDA modules for this specific module tree that we have. So now, what if you have an environment module? How can you use this? Well, you can actually use Lmodule for this. So first thing was that currently Lmodule or environment modules didn't have support for parsing modules until like version 4.5. And this issue I raised up with Javier about having some kind of ways so I can, like an equivalent to Spider, so in order to parse it. So they added this -- JSON option. I'm not sure if this format is going to be like if it's going to change over time. So I haven't implemented anything like this yet, but I have a script that I just implemented to kind of parse environment modules output, like using module avail, and to just test them. Just forgot a little bit of code, but the idea is we take the output of module avail that and use -t to get like the a list output is just abbreviated, and then we just parse each entry, and we use the module class to for loop over them and test them. We get the return code, and then right now you could just do a pass, like we just have a counter to see all the modules that pass and fail. And if you want to use the same source file, you can just download it, and it should work pretty well. So what we have done is we have actually taken that script, and I have this tested on Cori. I have this tested on other systems also using environment modules 3 and also 4. So what we have is we have this script called moduletest.py, and we test it for every single module tree. So we have, I think, like 5 different tests, and we're expecting a pass of 100%. That's in our expression, and we found that one of the tests failed. It had a 95% pass rate. This one of the trees that was the opt cray PE module files. And in that output, we saw one of the modules, perf tools light, failed. It had a return code 1, and it failed because it required another module to be loaded. So this test actually kind of shows how you can actually do like your entire software stack, just testing them through modules, and you can add as many trees as you want. Yeah. I just wanted to bring up some known issues. So if you have environment modules 3, which we do have here in Cori, if you load an unknown module, it will return an exit code 0, which is not the right exit code, as you can see on the bottom right. If you were to do this, so what we're doing is we're just loading module load X, and it's not a valid module, but it gives you an exit code 0. But if you were to do the same test on like environment module like 4, like I guess the latest version, you get an exit 1, and in Lmod is the same thing. So just one of these weird issues that that's present if you have an older version. So finally, I want to wrap up. The modules is it's the primary interface for the users and the software stack, and it is important for the facilities to actually test their software stack. Just basically a simple sanity check of module load is sufficient. Currently, we have one release of it. This was released in March, and yeah, I think it would be interesting to know like if others have interest in this, and you can probably improve the API a bit. If you need help, you can please file an issue, or you can just join the Slack channel. There are also some examples in the documentation, to help you get started if you want to write your own scripts. And yeah, you can just, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shizad. We already have a question by Maxime.
Yes, hi. So we install basically 99.99% of our modules with EasyBuild, which already tests loading the module when it gets installed. Do you see use cases in that situation for Lmodule?
If it's not installed through EasyBuild, if it's some user software stack they install themselves, sure. I'm not sure
okay.
how it's being. Well, I mean, I'm sure it may be okay if you already have it tested. But I know that, for instance, there are some software packages that may have to be installed that are out of scope of like sometimes even EasyBuild or spec. Like you have to have custom modules for things like that. Still requires testing.
Right. Yeah. Those are pretty rare, but yeah. Okay.
I guess there could be a use case when people start cleaning up installations and are not careful enough. So since modules generated by EasyBuild load other modules, if you happen to remove one of those, you may not be aware that you've broken something. So that's where Lmodule could help with flagging those modules as broken. She said maybe you can kill the screen share so we have something to look at. Yeah. Any other questions, Maxime? Oh, he's already muted again. Yeah, guess not. No, okay. I did have a question as well, Shazab. So you mentioned relying on Spider provided by Lmod. And when you're running the module load tests, does Lmodule take into account that there may be other modules that have to be loaded first before you can load the module? So if you're in a module hierarchy where you first have to load a compiler and an MPI to reach an application, is that something Lmodule does automatically when it sees that Lmod reports, oh, you have to load these first before loading something else?
Yeah, I believe, where was it? If I could share, it's using the parent module. So I have to test that part out. I believe I had this feature tested, but I don't think I have it. What was it? In this Spider record. So I don't have it with me right now, but one of the features is there's a Spider record called parent AA. And that is responsible for, these are parent modules that load module path to other trees where these modules are. And these modules need to be loaded first before you load, like in this example, diffutils. I don't believe I have that support, or I have to test it on an Lmod system. I can test it on another system. I just don't have it on Cori. But I believe I had this feature in build test when I was trying to migrate most of this.
Okay.
However, I think you can, if you don't have Lmod system, you can still use the module class and specify your custom like list of modules. So you can go into like this example on the bottom left. You can say a list of modules to load, or you can have a script that says like, you know, I want to load some modules before I load something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not clear exactly automatically do it yet.
Yeah, that may be important because if you do an Lmod Spider on a module name, Lmod may give you multiple options that says, okay, if you want to load this module, you either have to load A and B first or D and C first. So Lmodule would have to iterate over different options, and only one of those may be broken, depending on what happens in those modules, whether the actual module is actually there. So maybe what could happen, for example, is that in the Lmod cache, the module was recorded. So Lmod thinks the module file is there, but when we actually try to load it, that's when it reads the actual module file, and that may still fail even though Lmod is still reporting it. So if your cache is out of date or something like this, so it may also be useful to actually test whether what Lmod is telling the user is still working.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Spider actually, where was it? It was in, I'm sure, so if you have an Lmod system, you would be updating your Spider cache on like some cron basis or something like that. And if you invoke Spider, or if you invoke the module load test class, it will just use the Spider command. And during the interval when you submit it and Spider record is not up to date, it won't pick up the new modules. It's just trivial, but I think I mean, you could still work around it. I think that's, I don't know if that's in scope for our module to do that, but I didn't consider that yet.
You can also tell Lmod to ignore the cache if you want to bypass that and want to actually look at the system, but then it will be slower to walk through all the modules and load them. That will be a bit slower, but you can just, it's an environment variable. You can tell Lmod ignore the cache and just go to the actual files on the system. So depending on what you want to test, do you want to test the cache or the relation between the cache and the actual files, or do you just want to check what's on the file system? Yeah, there's again different options there depending on what you actually want to test, of course.
Yeah, you may sometimes also want to check that the cache isn't corrupt. That can happen.
Isn't corrupt or isn't outdated. So usually people have a cron. So we, for example, run a cron that updates the Lmod cache every hour. But if that cron dies or the node where that cron is running is dead or cannot reach the software or whatever happens, then the cache doesn't get outdated. So having a check that verifies whether the cache and the module files are not out of sync could also be very, very interesting, I think. It could be an easy check that people could run in their monitoring. And if they see if Lmod says, okay, the cache and the files are out of date or out of sync, then it could flag a red flag in the monitoring. So that could be a good use case for Lmod as well, for Lmodule as well. Okay, I don't see any other questions popping up, and we're getting close to the next talk. So we'll wrap up here. Thank you very much, Shazab. If people want to ask Shazab questions on either build test or Lmodule, I suggest you can move to the breakout room. I think Oke will have to recreate the room. So feel free to jump in there. I'm not sure, Shazab, if somebody will show up or not, but you can check. But we have to get ready for the next presentation. Thanks a lot.